But I want to touch on the soul painting before we move on from this question, because does the soul painting have anything to do with the Akasha records or a soul plan or anything like that? What is the soul painting about?
So it does not have to do with the Akashic records or a soul plan or anything like that. I think it's really cool when people do that work. It's not my thing, but it's neat stuff, right? And it's so my background, the way that I healed from the eating disorder and severe depression was through Jungian psychology. And Carl Jung, super famous guy, way ahead of his time. Basically, everyone from Louise Hay to everybody else bases what they say on his stuff. It's amazing. And he was very into symbolism and connecting with intuition and listening to your symptoms and finding out what they mean and why they're there and why they're in that part of your body. And he did a lot. He wrote something called the Red Book, which was his sort of giving up to some serious issues he was having. And he learned it, he used it to communicate with his guides. And throughout the journey, he created these amazing paintings.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Katie Beecher, medical and spiritual intuitive. And Katie and I are going to be talking on the topic holistic healing, uncovering the root cause of trauma. Yeah, sometimes you think you know, but a lot of times it's buried and you have to uncover it. So I'm so grateful to be talking to you, Katie. Like I told her before the recording started, that I've had a lot of medical intuitives on the show before, and I love what they do. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Awesome. Okay, so let me give you guys a brief introduction. Katie Beecher, MS, LPC, is a licensed professional counselor and medical and emotional intuitive with over 30 years of experience. She has a unique way of working with clients, creating a detailed physical, emotional, and spiritual report with symbolic painting before ever seeing them, talking with them, or even seeing a photograph using only their name and age. You got to do one for me.
Great.
Katie's book, Heal from Within, An Intuitive Guide to Wellness, was released in 2022. It is filled with valuable information from Katie's spiritual guides and vast professional and personal experience. She teaches her unique medical and emotional intuitive process, including, I'm going to say this right, Jungian psychology techniques to help people with their intuition, find self-love and empowerment, as well as heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The book also describes how she became a medical intuitive and details her own healing from eating disorder, depression, and Lyme disease. Wow, yeah, that Lyme disease. One of the guys that I follow, Peter Attia, he had a post the other day about the fact that it's summer and how to prevent ticks. And like I just told you before we started recording, I walk in the park every day. I do not want to get bitten by a tick. I do not want Lyme disease. It is a horrible, horrible disease. So I'm glad you're able to, to heal yourself from that. All right. So as we start off, what exactly is medical intuition and what is your process? You said that it was different from other intuitives. So can you explain that?
Yeah, certainly. I try to make the concept of medical intuition as non-woo-woo as possible, even though there's definitely some, mystery involved, if you will. And we all have the ability to do it. What I do is kind of on steroids, but simplistically, think of it this way. So we get a stomach ache or a headache, or our kids do, right? And you don't just sit there. Like, the first thing you do is try to be a detective. So it's, did I eat something that caused this? What do I need to do? Do I need to go lay down? Do I need to go have some crackers? Do I need to, you know, is it medicine I'm on? You start being a detective. Do I need to go to the hospital? What do I need to do about this? And so it's a tuning in to the body and soul and energy. And what I do, which is so different, is, what you said in the introduction, create a really extensive 4-page report, an intuitive soul painting. And it's just with someone's name and age. I send that before I meet with them. During the meeting, I get a lot more information from my guides. But there's a few different goals, because the people that contact me are looking for different things. A lot of them have physical and emotional symptoms, and they either want to know the root causes or want to know more root causes, or they don't, or they already know, but they're not getting enough help or want to heal faster. Other people just want help with relationships or setting boundaries or trauma or, family dysfunction or career, but the reading encompasses all of that information. So it's really comprehensive. And the goal is really to look at what's going on in people's lives, what's working, what's not working. So it's a really positive thing. And it's focused on getting to the bottom of, why we do what we do, why we feel the way we feel, where it started, what are the contributing factors. And the soul painting's kind of neat because it's a symbolic way of delivering information that might be similar to what's in the report, but also really different, because my guides start with a color. And then it's usually either a figure or a plant or an animal, but it symbolizes the person or the animal. I do pet readings too. It symbolizes the person I'm reading. And then every color means something. The position of the body, the position of the hands. Sometimes it's very hard to read information. So, for example, a lot of people, we talk about things they've never told other people about, like trauma and, sexual abuse and things. And so I'm really careful about what I write in the report, but seeing red in a certain area, maybe around your hips or something, it's sort of, people always know what it means, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual. And it's kind of a more gentler way to start a really difficult conversation.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right. So many circle backs there. Just yesterday, I was listening to a sermon, and the guy was a prophet. And he kept calling people out of the audience, and he would say, things like, do you live on this kind of street? God told me to tell you, da da da. But one of the guys that he called up, he said to him, I am seeing that you have a blood disorder. There's something going wrong with your kidneys, and you have a blood disorder. And he said to the guy, were you aware of this? And he said, no. So as soon as he said that, I says, okay, he's a medical intuitive as well as a prophet. So tell us about how you see something like that. I mean, or maybe we can start from the top. If somebody reaches out to you, they did tell you, okay, I've got this problem, and you go and do your little reporting, or they just call you up and say, I would like to have a reading, and they don't give you any information other than their name and their age, and you go about it that way.
Yes. So, first of all, what that person is doing is a bit dangerous and unethical, because I am not legally or ethically able to diagnose, nor should I be.
Okay.
And so that's really important to know. I am able to detect symptoms. So I'll bring up symptoms, I'll bring up, different things about it. I can say this might be similar to Lyme. or it might be similar to, I'm picking up some possible issues with your thyroid or something like that, right? And then I have natural physicians that I trust that I then refer to in terms of actual diagnosis and medical treatment. So that's really important to know.
Okay.
And yes, I know nothing about people. They find me on Instagram or, from my book or from recommendations from other people. And all I know is their name, age, email, because I have to be able to email them. That's it. So I know nothing. And then in the some of the readings have reports. You can also get a reading without a report and painting. And my guides just bring up all sorts of things, like, for example, maybe some trauma that they've experienced or family dysfunction, or, like I said, I bring up symptoms. We talk about intuition during
All right,
every
so let's
reading.
let me stop you there for a minute.
Yeah.
So I'm just understanding the process. So somebody reaches out to you,
Mhm.
they've read your book or they're on Instagram and they realize that you're a medical and spiritual intuitive. Now I can understand if someone is saying, okay, I have this problem in the relationship and I want to know the outcome. It's almost
Uh-huh.
like a psychic kind of thing. But so they reach out to you and you contact your guides to understand what the issue is. Is that how
Okay,
you
great.
say it?
Yes, yes, I
Okay.
know. It's complicated to understand, and I wish that I could explain how I do it in detail, but we'll do our best here, right? Okay.
Okay.
So, yes, so ideally, when people contact me, they just make the appointment through my website.
Mhm.
And it's just a form that says name, age, where you're located. That's all. So the less information I get, the better. Because if I have information, then my humanness starts to interpret things, and I don't want to do that. And so it's tougher with people I know. For
Mhm.
example, if somebody does email me and they're like, I want to know about this, I'm always like, okay, don't tell me any more stuff, because I will have to go much deeper than that, and I don't want to know anything. Right. So then that lets my guides do the work. So I have a template, a blank template. It's divided by chakras, which are energy centers in the body. It gives people the emotional and spiritual characteristics in general for those chakras, because I don't expect people to know what those are or what they mean. That's not fair. And then in the third column of this template, that's where my guides start just giving me information about the person.
Mhm.
So sometimes I try to tune in just in a general way with the person and get a general overview. And so that kind of gives me, like, is there maybe one or two central issues that the person's initially coming for? And then as I go through the template, the chart, I get much more specific depending on the part of the body. And so my guides will show me pictures. They'll show me words. They'll show me pictures of words. I will hear words in my head. I will sometimes have physical symptoms that the person is having.
Mhm.
I'm also a medium. So I get information from their loved ones in spirit, including pets.
Mhm.
Pets come through a lot and tell me things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So there's a lot of different ways that I'm given information about the person, and every reading is different. It's really specific to that person. And then while we're meeting, we go over the report, because I really want to hear, is this accurate? Is there something
Right.
that's not making sense to you? Sometimes I get information for loved ones or loved ones in spirit. So
Mhm.
it may not be exactly for them, but it gives them some family history, or things like that. And so we go over it. People can ask any questions they want. I always start by saying, is there a particular reason you contacted me? Because
Yes.
there's so much in the report that we can't get to it all. So I
Right.
want to make
Right.
sure that
Right.
I, start by focusing on their stuff. But
Okay.
it's really an exchange. And during every reading, I teach people how to connect to their intuition and their bodies too.
Right. That's amazing. Um, yeah. I've also interviewed a lot of mediums, and the last medium I had on the show, um, uh, he talked about, having a relationship with his daughter and helping people cross over and getting information from their loved ones to help them with not only the death of the loved one, but also areas that they need to work on. So that's here. So that's amazing. That sounds, and I know why you do the information with no, while you do the report with no information, because if I'm going to be evaluating you, whether
Mhm.
you're real or not, then I need to see how accurate you are. So I get you. Not only the humanness part, but if I just give you my name and my age and you come in and tell me all these things, then I know that you're for real. So then I open up and I start to trust and a relationship starts and things like that. But even if you're way off, we can still work together and you just fine tune your findings. But I want to touch on the soul painting before we move on from this question because does the soul painting have anything to do with the Akasha records or a soul plan or anything like that? What is the soul painting about?
So it does not have to do with the Akashic records or a soul plan or anything like that.
Okay.
Um, I think it's really cool when people do that work. It's not my thing, but it's neat stuff, right? And it's so my background, the way that I healed from the eating disorder and severe depression was through Jungian psychology. And Carl Jung, super famous guy, way ahead of his time. Basically, everyone from Louise Hay to everybody else bases what they say on his stuff. It's amazing. And he was very into symbolism and connecting with intuition and listening to your symptoms and finding out what they mean and why they're there and why they're in that part of your body. And
Mm,
he did a lot. He wrote something called the Red Book, which was his sort of giving up to some serious issues he was having, and he learned it. He used it to communicate with his guides, and throughout the journey, he created these amazing paintings, symbolic paintings, and wrote
okay.
about it. So I'm also an artist, and I love the concept of art therapy, and it's such a powerful tool. So it was sort of my way of incorporating symbolic art into the process. When I get the information for the report, even though a lot of it is delivered in a lot of different ways, it's words, right? So you're giving somebody words. And words can be more easily interpreted by a human. So I wanted a way to get information that I could not skew, I couldn't interpret it, I couldn't overthink it. It's just there. So during the reading, I interpret the painting for people and let them know what it means. And it's really, again, it's really intricate. It's really like, um, it's a depiction of who they are at their core, so their authentic self, as well as the things that they're going through, and showing where things might be stored in the body. So things like trauma, things like abuse, things like grief and loss, showing where that might be still held in the body, so that you know more of how to work with that and resolve it.
Wow, that's amazing. All right. Well, yeah, you know, I can talk on any question because I've been interviewing, thought leaders and spiritual people on this show and then I read a lot of books. So that's amazing. So I did not know that about Carl Jung's work. I know that he was instrumental in synchronicity,
Mm-hmm.
and I listened to, I've read his books, and I was just talking to, um, uh, uh, I think my interview that aired last week. the gentleman was talking about Carl Jung's synchronicity. So I did not know he did the paintings and the Jungian psychology and all that. So, but, and I've also talked to people about issues in your tissues where you hold thing. And I think someone came on and said, actually, the same guy that says, if you tell me where your pain is, then I can tell you what's going on. What does it mean if it's, your left leg or whatever? So that's the same thing I'm thinking that you do. But do you help them release it or you just point it out?
Yes. So knowing that everybody's there's kind of a general sort of symbolism for the body, like legs are about moving forward ish, things like that. But what I help people with is their specific issues, their specific physical and emotional symptoms. What does that mean for them specifically? So it's way more than just general, looking it up in a book information.
Right.
And it's things like I see this all the time where someone has maybe been through sexual abuse, let's say, and that affects the second chakra, which is the reproductive organs, hips, things like that. That is often depicted in the body as things like endometriosis, fibroids. It could be fertility issues. It could be pelvic pain. It can be so many different things depending on you. The gut, for example, our gut is often our bat signal. And what I mean by that is we may get symptoms in our gut before we even connect it to having any feelings, and we may not even connect it to any feelings at all. And then are those feelings ours, or are we picking them up from other people? And so people who have gut issues, their natural human inclination is to be physically what's wrong. But then when we point out, when does this happen? And what was going on in your life when this happened? And things like that, it can help them to connect those feelings. And so one of the tools that I use, it's not so releasing is definitely part of what I do. But it's also helping people to befriend their bodies and befriend their symptoms, because the traditional model is fight, right? Fight against it, get rid of it, all that. Well, what worked for me with my eating disorder and Lyme, and still to this day, is okay, I'm having this symptom. What if it's my friend? What if it's really useful and part of my healing team? So I am going to talk to it as a friend and say, why are you here? What do you want me to know? How can I help you heal? Thanks for getting my attention, because I've been pushing down my feelings and pushing down my intuition. Therefore, I needed something pretty freaking unpleasant to get my attention, like we all do. So it's not necessarily just the getting rid of, it's the learning what it means and using it as a tool to help yourself.
I love that. I knew about befriending. I don't remember who said that, but I think it's one of the Indian gurus that I follow that said that, don't fight. If you have an issue, just love it. And
Right?
I've tried that when, if there's something that's wrong with me, just give it love and something and it will go away. But instead of fighting it and saying, get out.
No,
Get
it's there
out.
for a
Yeah.
reason. It's there
Well,
for a reason. And it might be the best gift and the most important gift you've ever had.
yeah, because it brings your attention. Yeah, yeah. Which is also the guy that I talked to about the one that issues in your tissues. He is saying that, yeah, like when you have pain, it is the last thing. Your body's been trying to get your attention with lots of other things before, and pain is the last one. And if you don't listen to that, then obviously. But
Yeah, and that's all Jungian psychology. That's all Jung. That's every bit of it.
very,
All Jung. Every bit of it. Yep. That
I
we
love
all
that.
took
All
it from
right.
there.
I've never read anything on that. I guess I'll put that in one of the things that I need to learn. So that's amazing. All right. Now, One of the things we want to talk about is the root cause of healing. So, why is it important? We were talking basically, since we started about the physical
Mhm.
reasons that we have problems. But why is it important to look at the emotional and spiritual factors in addition to physical ones? Can we get into that for a minute?
Yeah, it's absolutely essential. I mean, when I was going through my recovery starting at 16, my guide said with connection to love, connection to yourself, self-acceptance, and connection to intuition, you can heal from just about anything. And it's sort of not sort of like, so you can have physical issues, you can get into an accident, whatever. But let's say, and I pick this up all the time, that you are in a relationship where you are not being treated well, or you don't set boundaries with your family or friends, and then you're overextended and you don't take care of yourself. And so you don't get to do the things you love. You don't get to live your purpose, or you're at a job you hate, or all of those things. And so you're basically pushing down your intuition, yourself, your connection with spirit, your authenticity. And if we do not address those things, that's when the physical and emotional symptoms start. There's some of the root causes and contributors, not all of it. You can get into a car accident, obviously, and get hurt. But not addressing the spiritual and emotional stuff gets in the way of healing. And what I believe from doing this work for 35 years in my own recovery is that we are put here to connect to spirit, to do whatever it is we're meant to do here. And that means a ton of things. It doesn't just mean earth shattering things. It might mean being a mom or dad or whatever, but we're here to be our authentic selves. And that's how we fulfill our purpose here, and we learn it, we grow. So if that piece is missing, then a huge part of ourselves is missing. And if you don't at least look into it, making those changes doesn't happen overnight. You can't go from being a people pleaser and taking care of everybody else and finding your identity in you helping others, and all of a sudden overnight you're going to change, because there's so many fears of, if I start standing up for are people going to still like me? Are they going to get mad at me? Am I going to be abandoned? And so much of that is trauma based, the early trauma that we had to learn to protect ourselves from. All of those trauma responses continue with us into adulthood when they're not even serving us anymore.
Yeah, that is so good. A couple of very important points there. One is that most of us never knew what our core self is because, everything comes on top of us and we are in our environment. But again, Deepak Chopra says one of the first things you should say is, who am I? Why am I here? But who gets the answer to that? I mean, it's very hard to know that. But, my daughter, because she's a people pleaser, don't know. She didn't really have any childhood trauma, but it could be, trauma from a previous relationship. And she got this book that she was reading the other day about why 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 is it important to be liked or something like that. And she says, Mom, you should read it. I haven't gotten around to it yet because it's not my top priority. But it's what you just said. Why is it that you became a people pleaser? Why is it that you want to be liked so badly that you ever want to say no to anybody. But yeah, I mean, you said that earlier, and I didn't get to respond to it. But one of the things you said that your soul paintings do is show people their authentic core self, and that's good work because most people don't know who they are or why they're
They
here.
don't. And I have there's some really cool tools for this in my book, but a super simple one to get you started is start a running list on your phone of just things about you. And it can be that you wear glasses. It can be that you have brown eyes. It can be that you like broccoli. It can be all of these little things add up to who you are. And they may change. But it starts, it number one, it starts you thinking about what's important to me, who I am, what do I want, what do I need. So it starts you focusing on yourself instead of outward to others all the time. And then the more you think that way and you think about adding to your list, then you're like, oh, wow, this thing really is important to me, or I'm doing this and it doesn't align with myself at all. And I need to stop that. Or, you know, but our authentic self is, it is of course influenced by others, but it's really important. Like the more you know you, the more courage you will have to express who you are and your
Yeah.
feelings. So it's a super simple, you know, exercise, and it doesn't take much time, and you can just keep adding to it.
Well, it's important. It's
Yeah.
important because yeah, like what happens with children? They pick up beliefs and things from their environment, from their parents, and then they think that's who they are. But I mean, you're right. If you know something of the conversation, like I like this and I don't like that, because you know your likes and dislikes. And if you're saying, okay, yeah, I wear glasses, you know, something's wrong with my eyes or something like that. That starts the conversation about looking inside and not looking outside. So,
Yeah, and a lot of people who are empaths and people who are really sensitive, some of that is learned trauma behavior, because if you are in an environment where you are afraid of getting abandoned, or you're not cared about, or you cannot talk about your feelings or who you are, or you see truths that are not safe, you learn that you had better figure out what people are thinking, what they're going
mhm.
to do before they do it, right?
Yes,
And that you better
yes,
learn to adapt to that and be
yes,
who they want you to be, or bad things are going to happen. So
yes.
you take that fear and that trauma, and then you push down who you are, and sometimes you don't even get to find out until, you know, way later, but it's never too late.
Yeah, yeah. You never find out. You die and be reborn.
Right?
But yeah, I
Happening.
mean, as you were talking, two people came to mind. You know, Tony Robbins, when he shares his story, he's all because his mom was an alcoholic and he had to figure out who she is. You know, Will Smith talks about when his father comes through the door, he had to figure out what kind of mood he's in so
Hey,
that he can please him and he doesn't beat his mom. So
that's
both
right.
of those are two, you know, top people that
That's
talk
right.
about that. But I understand what you're saying. They've got to be able to read what's going on so they can protect their siblings from whatever is happening, and they learn to reach out and tap into other people's feelings and but yeah, and Will Smith, if we were going to talk about him, he went and did like 14 sessions of ayahuasca learning who he was because again he was all a pleaser, you know,
Yeah,
being in this environment where he's got to please everybody, and he wanted to find out who he is. So it's
exactly. Yeah,
very
and
important.
it's part of my story. It's part of so many stories out there, you know, and the people who have the courage to be truth tellers, to stand up to this, to do things differently, to break the family generational trauma cycles. It's hard to be that person, because you often end up with the most serious issues, because then
Mhm.
that makes you get help and figure out who you are and all that. But it can also make you a black sheep, because there's a lot of people who aren't ready to deal with their stuff,
Yeah.
you know, and they don't want you dealing with it and bringing it up.
Yeah, they don't want you telling. I think I mean, Tony Robbins didn't start talking until his mom died, and I think Will Smith did the same thing. He didn't write a book until his dad died or something because yeah, your family never wants you to bring these things up because they're, you know, when I wrote my book because I was, you know, sexually molested as a kid and I put it in my book and my mom says, "Why did you put that in there?"
Because it's important. Right?
You know what I mean? Yeah, but we are starting to change that. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody is telling their story because not only it makes people, you know, um, feel their transparency and maybe connect with them, but it
Exactly.
also helps the next person. So that's why we tell our stories and we don't let the story die with us. So it's becoming much more everybody's telling their story, you know?
And we're
And
all so much more alike than we are different.
yes, yes, exactly. And you know, your pain point, your story, your trauma might help someone else. And that's what I do on this show. I come on and I talk to people that have a story, that have a book, that are helping someone else with their work. And that's why we're on podcasts and we're talking about things that would help people. Now, one of the things that you talk about is connecting with our spirit guides. And I was doing a meditation because I'm a meditator. And I was doing a meditation recently as a couple of weeks ago, where the meditation was saying, you know, connect to your spirit guides, write a question and have them answer it if there's something that you need. But a long time ago, maybe a couple years ago, I was doing another meditation too, and the person is saying, you know, connect with your spirit guide again. What did they look like, and all that? But I could never do it. So, I mean, do you have to be psychic or a medium to connect with your spirit guide? If you're someone like me, how can you connect with your spirit guides?
Okay. So the word, let's start with just the word spirit guide. When I started to connect to my intuition, I'd been talking to dead people all my life from when I was a kid. I didn't know what it was. It was just terrifying and terrifying and helpful.
Because you're a medium,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
And other things, right? So when I got into therapy and actively started to connect to intuition, or even actually even before that, what it felt like to me was God. So just pure love. It was a voice. I would just hear a voice. I remember when I was 3 hearing a voice, and all these things. Those are my stuff. So I don't want to limit people by them thinking that they have to connect to spirit guides, because they don't. And when I started, I would just connect to my generic God. I later, the more I did it, realized that I was talking to my intuition and that I had guides and all these other things and loved ones in spirit. So I know something about my spirit guides. I know like my main one is a Native American male who's been like a tribal leader forever, and some other stuff, and my grandparents, but I don't know what they look like. I don't know their names, and it's not important, because it's all basically connected with love. It's love, and anybody who tries to say that doing that is evil or goes against the Bible or anything like that it's just sad, because it couldn't be further from the truth. So, no, you absolutely do not have to have any psychic abilities or anything. I teach people how to do it in my book. I teach people how to do it during every reading. And it should be the most natural thing in the world, because we've been doing it our whole lives. It's gut feelings, it's little warnings, it's little like, oh, I meet that person and I get a little vibe. Like, I think I'll hang out with them or get to know them more, or, oh God, I don't want to get to know them at all,
Right, right,
So
right.
it's something that we've been
But
using.
that's intuition. I'm talking about spirit guides. Now, I believe that I'm connected to. I mean, I think somebody was saying up to today. I was listening. I was doing something, reading a book on vibration, and they're talking about connecting to your higher self. Right.
Mm-hmm,
I believe, but I am connected to my higher self because I get these intuitive hits,
mm-hmm,
and it's usually helps me in my life. But
mm-hmm.
and I'm not quite sure if my higher self and the Holy Spirit, because I'm a Christian, whatever, is in the same bucket. But I think a spirit guide is angels or something, right? So let's get into what they are.
Differentiate, to be honest. For
Okay.
me, it's I will take information from whoever would like to send it. Thank you very much. I think it's all connected. I feel like intuition, God, spirit guides, angels, loved ones in spirit, to me, it's all connected with love. And even, looking at it from a quantum physics point of view, all of our energies are connected. So I think, to me, it would be limiting to just ask for information from one source. And I'm just like, what I look at, right, when I think about connecting to whatever, is I see myself, and then there's a very large circular table. And the people sitting at that table in front of me are my main peeps. So, my grandma and the main spirit guide people, whatever you want to call them, gods there, whatever. And then I see rows and rows and rows and rows of people on my spiritual team.
Oh,
So, and
wow.
we all have these armies. And because I think
Nice.
that love is a really unifying source, you know? So when I look into other people's energy and their guides and their stuff, it's literally an army of people. So it's not just one or two people, if that makes sense.
Well, I never heard of an army, but I think I heard someone, either a book or someone I interviewed, was saying that she would wake up and there's a whole bunch of people at the foot of her bed, like dozens of
Love it.
spirits.
Love it. Yep.
But I never heard like you have an army. So that's good because there's millions of them, right? Um, so the question was, how do we connect to our spirit guides? I mean, I like the answer that you said you don't need to know what they look like. Someone was trying to tell me the other day that if you're connecting to your spirit guide, then you've got to see them, and you got to know if they're male or
No,
female. You
no.
you you know your main one, but you're saying that it's not important.
Mm-mm.
So you're saying that if you're trying to connect to your spirit guide, you're just like what the book or the meditation was telling me. Was that correct? If you want a question answered, you just write the question out, and then whatever your intuition comes to tell you is your spirit guide is responding. Is that how you connect?
So there's some techniques in my book. The main one that I am literally alive because of, and continue to do this day, and healed because of, is a written dialogue exercise. That's, again, it's Jungian psychology. No one made it up. That I have modified for my own purposes. But it's you write out a question or thoughts or feelings, direct it to whatever's out there, whatever you want to, and then it can be a question, it can be is there something you want to tell me, like whatever.
Mhm.
And then you write that down, and then whatever you hear, write that down and write back to it, and whatever you hear, write that down. So you're having a written dialogue. The
Okay.
only way I say that that is my preferred way is because writing is really powerful, because you have to stop what you're doing to write. There's
Mhm.
a ton of ways of communicating. Like, you can sit in nature and get feelings, you can do it in your head, you can whatever. But for me, being a person who has the attention span of a flea, and who um, has a hard time being in the moment, right? It's like, when you're doing this, it's a mindfulness meditation. You're
Mhm.
right there, you're with the piece of paper,
Yes.
you're much less likely to think about what am I having for dinner, or any other thing that pops into my head. So
Right.
it was a very direct, like, and the other advantage is we get intuitive signals from our bodies all the time. So
Mhm.
using our hand and arms to write with brings our body in. It's
Mm.
grounding. It's really hard to listen when you're out in another planet or out of your body. This brings you in your body. So you're
Right.
present, you feel safer. If you don't feel safe, especially from trauma, then it's
Right.
very hard to let go enough, to listen and to trust. So for
Right.
me, that's one of my preferred ways. There's, lots of stuff in my book, but that
Right.
literally
Yes.
saved my
Amazing.
life. Like, not
I
one.
will, yeah, I'll definitely pick up a copy of your book because I love this stuff. Right. Yeah. And I do believe that connecting to your spirit guides or your higher self or God or your intuition is how you maneuver this life in and become a creator of your life and not being somebody that just blowing with the wind of whatever problem. That's what you're gonna respond to, like a responder. If you're a creator, then you're connecting it to your higher self, the supernatural.
And
So
also,
that's great. All
yeah,
right, so it's perfect time for us to talk about your book, and
yes,
it's called Heal from Within: An Intuitive Guide to Wellness. So, why did you write it? You've been, as you say, in this space for about 35 years. So, why did you write it? And what do you want your readers to walk away with after reading?
great question. I wrote it because my guides told me to write it when I was 16 and recovering. And they wanted me to pass on all of the things that I was learning. They helped me get into recovery. I called our pediatrician when I was 16. People have heard the story and didn't tell my parents, didn't tell anyone. I was just like, there's something wrong. I need help. That was divine intervention. So they basically said, look, what you've learned from this and how it has helped you heal. This is something that a lot of people need and can relate to. And so it's my own story, of course, how I healed from the eating disorder and Lyme and depression and all the things, family dysfunction. It takes people through their issues, like what is going on with you, what are all the possible things that you're dealing with, strengths and problems. There's all kinds of charts and quizzes and things like that, so you kind of know where to start. It teaches people how to connect to their intuition, their symptoms, how to talk to their symptoms, all that. And then it also teaches people how to do kind of a medical intuitive reading on themselves. My husband calls it Katie Beecher, the home game. And it's my actual template in there that I use when I do the readings. Each chakra has a separate chapter that gets really in depth about if you are having issues that relate to this part of the body and these emotional and spiritual things. These are some of the root causes. These are some of why it's happening in those areas. This is how that is related to this chakra also. And it's, what can you do to kind of get to the bottom of why that's happening? It helps you to make sense of why things happen when they do and to what areas and what it relates to in terms of your personal experiences. And then gives lots and lots, like a step-by-step thing about doing that and steps you can take towards healing. And then the second part is kind of like a glossary of issues that you can look up and get more specific, information about healing.
Nice. I love it. So you wrote it with a healing context, not necessarily, well, I guess if you're a medical intuitive, it's all about healing, whether it's from trauma or, physical things. We all keep our issues in our tissues. I think the guy that I was interviewing saying that's his patent or that's his phrase. But I love it because yeah, you it's the same thing. It's a bumper sticker for yeah, you hold your trauma in different parts of your body or emotional things in different parts of your body. I like what you said though about emotional um emotional things that start showing up in your body. We all know that, which is why they say that cancer and those things are all from lifestyle things that you push down. And a lot of times I says, you know what, I'm pushing this down because I don't want it to start to come up with
Exactly.
cancer and all those things because it is true. You do push these things down and it comes up into some kind of a disease. So amazing. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get a copy of your book. I love this stuff. I love learning. I love understanding about who I am and connecting to my spirit guides and helping, having the quantum energy, help me with my work and
Oh, it's
the things
awesome.
that I need to do. So amazing. All right. So obviously your book is on Amazon. Do you have a website? You said you're on Instagram. What is your Instagram handle?
Yes. So my books, yeah, everywhere, Instagram, whatever. I'm on Instagram at Katie Beecher Medical Intuitive. Same with Facebook. My website is Katie Beecher, BEE.com. And there's links to everything. You can make appointments, through my website and things like that. I have a bunch of different offerings and different price points. So that's really good to know. There's some people who just need one appointment. You just do one reading and you're good. And other people maybe meet with me again in 6 months or a year, or I have people that I meet with on a regular basis too. So it's not like, you meet with me once and then you have to have 10 more appointments. It's not like that at all. So
I love that. And you say the first time they meet with you, they get the soul painting and they get all these different things about all that. So that's pretty good. Right. Yeah, that's pretty good. Amazing. All right. Well, this has been a very enjoyable conversation. I like talking about things that I like to talk about, and these are one of the things that I like to talk about.
Right?
And I will have a summary of my conversation with not the whole transcript, but a summary of my conversation with the most important points on the show page, which is myhelps.us. I will link out to Katie's book, her website, and her Instagram handle for those of who you want to follow her and get some more information. If whatever we talked about today, if it resonates with you, definitely make an appointment and get a reading. Listen, knowledge is power. Yeah, so it's very important to know things that would help you in this life. So, Katie, thank you for being on the show and for this conversation. Hopefully, you're evaluating me as we're talking.
Loved it. I've enjoyed it. Your questions are great. You're great. Super, super loved it. And lots of stuff people can, take from it, hopefully.
Exactly. So, thank you. Any last words before we wrap up?
Just that it's never too late to heal. It's never too late to heal from trauma. It's never too late to get out of a relationship that makes you unhappy. And love yourself, be patient with yourself, and yeah, go from there.
Go from there. All right. Well, listen, thank you, Katie, for being on the show. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind so you can transform your life. Today, we're talking about understanding the medical and spiritual and emotional, intuitive side of things because sometimes we need help to understand our trauma, understand what's going on with our body, understand why our body is responding certain ways because we can't figure it out ourselves. So, God has put guides and people here with exceptional abilities, and Katie's one of these people that have exceptional abilities. So utilize her if you need her. And again, if you're watching the show, or watching on TV or listening on any of the podcast channels, or even watching on YouTube, it's always great for you to, leave a comment, like, share with somebody that you think would benefit from this information. That also helps the show grow. So thank you guys for being here today. Thank you, Katie. And until next time, namaste.